Hello and welcome to DMs with PM for another week. It is our 9th episode in this season 3. I am your host, Arcelyn Crosby, and I want to say welcome to all our viewers and listeners, our listeners on Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, Vibes FM, on GIS, also on our Facebook page and the YouTube channel. It is another special Tuesday, and it's the start of, I think it's 3 of the most competitive days in Grenada, at the start of Inter-col, but more so, we are discussing the big things that are happening here in Grenada. And always a pleasure to say welcome to our most esteemed guest, Prime Minister. Welcome for another week.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy again to be joining you and the citizens of Grenada as we engage in DMs with the PM. For the Inter-col fanatics, I hope the first day is going well, and I look forward to attending one of the days, most likely on Thursday, the big day.
Yes, I think it's safe to say that it is the 3 most competitive days in Grenada. Everybody stop working and we look at our screens.
Yes, the problem with the adults is that when they're in school, they don't take part. And then when they leave school, they then reminisce about what they missed. So,
yes.
But no, it's good fun, and I'm happy that we're able to support our students. Not just in terms of the track and field, but obviously in terms of the school rivalry.
Yes. Clean, supportive. So this week, Prime Minister, we're going to start off a bit different as we would normally start. We did get to chit-chat a little bit, but we are going to get to a serious project, and a project that is expected to make a huge impact on Grenada's health sector. So we're going to start off with a video today that shows government's Vision 75's plan for the healthcare sector.
Open your eyes to a new Grenada, one that is poised to take off. A Grenada at the tip of the spear that leads into the future. Our vision for Grenada is holistic, and our actions are intended to be intentional and planned. People are the heartbeat of this nation. Our society must allow them to aspire and advance. We shall place people at the center of Vision 75 by prioritizing 5 main pillars of development that will create a prosperous and equitable society and a vibrant economy.
Health. Any vision for the future must start with our people, a healthy people. We intend to thrust the health sector to the forefront as an integral part of holistic development. The equation is quite simple. Healthy citizens equals productive citizens, and productive citizens equals more economic growth. Health is more than hospitals and clinics, and that is why we intend to create a medical ecosystem. Nestled on the border of St. George and the Virgin Parish of St. David, land has been allocated for the development of a medical campus. This campus will integrate a teaching hospital equipped with cutting-edge technology, specialist medical clinics, pharmacies, and modern retirement homes, but it is beyond staying healthy. We want to use health as the catalyst for creating a healthy economy. We intend to link healthcare with tourism and agriculture, taking advantage of our therapeutic environment and positioning our island as not only a place that offers top-notch care and medical procedures, but as a rejuvenation destination and a producer of bespoke medical products with our herbs and spices.
Thank you there, Prime Minister. An inclusive health plan, Project Polaris.
Yes, so we are excited. In a sense, we can perhaps dub the month of March as the month of health. There are a lot of initiatives taking place. The first of which is the groundbreaking sword turning ceremony for Project Polaris at the site in Calavini, which we've been calling Hopeville Medical City, and I think I'm going to stick with the name Hopeville because it obviously hope connotes, I think, the aspiration for a future-ready, state-of-the-art medical hospital that anchors our healthcare vision for Grenada. And as the video shows, it's not just about, in a sense, reactionary healthcare. It's also particularly about preventative healthcare as well. So we see this as part of what we've projected forward. It's about Vision 75, what will Grenada look like by 2049 or 2050, if you want to perhaps take a more, a more sort of half-century period emanating from our 50th anniversary of independence. And this really is about showing that you can articulate a vision, you can then have the plan, and then you can implement the plan. I think we've all known for all of our 50th anniversary of, or 50 plus years of independence, that we've talked about a new hospital. It has not happened. Since this administration has gotten into office, we've taken very methodical and deliberate steps to make sure that it can happen. We acquired the site, and incidentally, this site could have been acquired 10 years ago. 10 years ago, as in 10 years prior to our administration coming into office, when there was a change of government from the NDC to the NNP. The NNP administration chose not to proceed with purchasing the land. 10 years later, we had to buy it, and probably buy it at a lot more cost. But we don't complain, we find the solutions. We bought the land, so the land is under government control. We've put together a delivery team to begin the process of finding the financing for doing so, and thus far we've secured about $185 million in very concessional loan financing to commence the construction, and we continue to work on the additional financing aspects. The government itself has set aside $25 million to put towards the construction of the cost, and we continue the discussions with other partners who may be interested, both from a debt and equity point of view, to continue the funding. We've signed a 15-year collaboration agreement with Mount Sinai. That's critical for two things. One, to ensure that we have expertise that can help us with things like the clinical programs that we offer at the hospital, and making sure that the practices and the standards at the hospital are first class and are in keeping with international standards. The ultimate goal is to make sure that the hospital is accredited as the JCI International Standard Hospital that will allow us to attract the best in the world in terms of persons who want to work there, and critically be able to attract the medical tourism aspect of it. So that's another piece. It's important to point out as we speak, however, that Mount Sinai has been working with us to ensure that we can improve the quality of care that happens at the hospital. Because we have to ensure that the standards, the practice, the protocols are in place now, so that when we transition from the existing hospital to the new hospital, that we would have already built the culture, the systems, the practice, the HR practice to match that. What is also happening, which is important, is the statutorization process, which is underway. This is designed to ensure that the healthcare system can operate under a legislative policy framework that is far more responsive than the current public healthcare system that we have, which unfortunately operates as a bureaucracy, and so oftentimes is very slow in terms of its ability to respond to the needs of the public, and particularly the HR needs of persons who work within the healthcare system. Then there's also the financing piece, the national health insurance that we are working on. I'm highlighting all of those things because the fact here is that this is not just about building a hospital. It's about changing the entire ecosystem that exists within the healthcare system to make sure that we can have a healthy, productive Grenada, and one where the public is proud of its healthcare system. I can go on and on, but I'm mindful that I'm sure you have other questions. So.
All right, so tomorrow we have an event at the Wester Hall Secondary School.
That's correct.
I wanted to extend that invitation to the public.
Yes, so we're having a town hall. We've been specifically targeting Wester Hall, Calavini, Marion, surrounding areas, because obviously Project Polaris will be nestled at Calavini Estate, which is the immediate neighborhood, Fort Judy, Wester Hall Point, Egmont. We're inviting all and sundry to come out to the Wester Hall Secondary School. The town hall starts at 6 p.m. It's your opportunity to hear about Project Polaris, also to hear about the wider initiatives in the healthcare, and to ask your questions, raise your concerns, give your suggestions, because this is our hospital. This is a national project. We believe it could be as transformative as the Morris Bishop International Airport when it was constructed and commissioned. And we really want the population to own the project, own the hospital, and own the transformative change that will take place. I'm going to make a pitch here and point to that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, we are already contributing part of our salary towards a fund to assist in defraying the cost of construction, and it's something I want to encourage. That's part of the national pitch that we want to ensure that Grenadians collectively work towards building the hospital. Yes, we will get loans, yes, we may get grant funding, but we also want to do our part in making this a success. So 6 p.m. tomorrow, Westall Secondary School. You can come out in your numbers, and obviously we will provide as much information as we can, but more importantly, we'll be happy to entertain the questions or concerns or comments that the residents may have. And it's open to the entire public, but obviously we wanted to make sure that the neighborhoods immediately surrounding the site had the opportunity to hear firsthand from the project team.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Prime Minister. What we're going to do now, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we start off with our questions, because if we continue to talk on Polaris, we'll be talking for the evening on just Project Polaris. But tomorrow you go to Westall Secondary School. For now, we take a quick break. When we come back, we take in some of the DMs that you have sent us.
Do you live or own a business in Calavini, Marianne, Hopevale, Westerhall, or surrounding communities? The Government of Grenada invites you to a town hall meeting this Wednesday focused on Grenada's healthcare transformation and Project Polaris. Hear directly from the project team, ask questions, and gain a better understanding of the new hospital development in your community. The town hall meeting is on Wednesday, March 18th, 6 p.m. at the Westerhall Secondary School. The Honorable Prime Minister and members of Cabinet will be attending. You are an integral part of this conversation. Join the Government of Grenada, 6 p.m. Wednesday, March 18th at the Westerhall Secondary School. Come out and learn more about this exciting project happening in your community.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, you just missed our chit chat and the video that we shared from Vision 75, specifically dealing with the health sector and how Project Polaris is expected to way improve what now exists, and how you can get involved. So now we go on over to your DMs. What are the questions that you sent us via the various social media platforms? And we will be starting with visa/travel. Seeing that visa is a big thing for us in the third world countries, why not let all who are coming to our country pay for a visa so that it can bring revenue? A question there from Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa, for that. It's one approach, but we also have to factor that we are actually heavily dependent on people coming. And we live in a very competitive tourism market regionally as well as internationally. There are lots of places for people to visit. And so if you make it more expensive to come to an island, it increases the risk that people are not going to come. Tourism is a very price-sensitive industry. And so in theory, it may sound on paper that you will get revenue if you charge for the visa, but the reality is that having visas may actually limit the number of persons who come or choose to come significantly. So the approach that we actually probably want to take is get to a point where we have a biometric and digital system that allows us to perhaps have what is called electronic travel authorization, the same way the United States and the UK and so on are going. St. Kitts has already made significant strides in that regard in the region. The idea here is that then persons can pay for the electronic travel authorization, and we can perhaps do a revenue share where the third-party supplier that provides the service to us gets the revenue and shares the revenue with the government. But we have to be very careful with making travel to Grenada more expensive or imposing restrictions on people traveling. My own sort of philosophical view is that as a small island, you want to be connected to the world as much as possible. That's how you drive trade, commerce, business, which means we should actually be pursuing a visa-free policy rather than a visa restriction policy. As it stands, Grenada is underpopulated. Most of the OECS islands are underpopulated. And so we actually need more people on the islands, not less.
Okay. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Vanessa, for your question. Now on to fire department. So that seemed to be two questions. One, I noticed that the fire department is neglected. Government go and government come, and the fire department remains the same. Are there any plans to invest in the fire department? We don't even have a utility vehicle, but all other departments have, especially on the airport. Please make time and visit the fire departments throughout the island. Second question, any updates on regulation on persons within the RGPF on contract, especially in the fire department, on the airport. Question there from Mr. Schott.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schott. I certainly will not argue with you that it's sometimes easy to forget the fire department, but they play a critical role in safeguarding and securing and responding to fire emergencies throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and I want to thank them for their service, both those who work on pay and the many firefighters who volunteer to assist with that. Certainly, I think this administration has been concerned with the state of fire tenders in particular, and efforts have been made to, in fact, procure and secure fire tenders. The truth is, fire tenders do have very specialized equipment, and they take a very long time to be procured. In fact, we've sought to sort of use hybrid fire trucks on the record. We, in fact, got a recommendation from Mr. James Ince, who had bought a water truck from Jamaica and had indicated to us that based on his observations in Jamaica, the police and fire authorities, they were converting them into fire trucks. And we've actually pursued that. And I believe last week one of the trucks actually arrived on the island and is being cleared. So we are looking at investing more in the equipment. We certainly appreciate the significance of having a well-resourced, well-equipped fire response system. We also recognize that we have to be creative, because the challenge we have is many of our roads are quite small, quite narrow, and sometimes they're blocked by vehicular traffic or other obstacles. So we can't necessarily rely on some of the large fire tenders that we have to be able to actually provide service to the public. I can't speak on the second part as to the state of affairs at the airport, but it is something that I can look into. I know there has been some back and forth between the airport and the RGPF as to whether the personnel there should properly be police officers or whether they should properly fall under the airport's authority. I don't have a current brief, so I can't speak to it, but it is something that I'm certainly can follow up with the airport's authority and with the management of the RGPF.
Okay. Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you there for your question. Now on to the next, now dealing with health. I am in Colombia with my son who has leukemia. The treatment is very expensive. I am asking for financial help because our money is almost out. We have been trying to raise funds, but it's slow coming. A question there from Decima Philip.
All right, thank you, Decima. And well, it's the first time I'm hearing about this, and obviously I hope that the treatment goes well for her and particularly her son. In the absence, we have a name, but assuming we have the contact details, I can certainly ask the team at the Ministry of Health to look out to see what, if any, support can be provided to them in that regard.
Okay. Thank you, Prime Minister. On to another question, higher education. Is there anything in place to support the citizens of Grenada who wish to add a new skill to their career without going back to school full-time with NULO or TAM-CC? Example, something like a night school after your day job. Yes. The question is from Kino.
Right. There isn't anything currently in place from the government perspective, but we are certainly working on commissioning, as we said, the centers of excellence, and part of the work that is going into designing this will also factor in the option to allow persons to be able to have access to technical and vocational training beyond what I would call the normal hours that one can find during the day. So we do recognize reskilling and upskilling as part of what we need to address in Grenada. We are hoping, all things being equal, that by January of 2027, we're in a position to open what I would call the first center of excellence. We are targeting agriculture, okay, in particular because of the fact that we currently import 80% of all our food. So we have a serious food security challenge on our hands. We still have, although a lot of our lands are small holdings, we still have, we think, enormous opportunity to grow a lot of our food. And everything from livestock, small ruminants, to vegetables, to ground provisions in terms of cassava, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, yams, dasheen, edos. We're hoping that with support to the Food and Nutrition Council, we know that they're working on getting a consultancy in place to update the Food and Nutrition Council Act, and also to give the Food and Nutrition Council, I think, greater ability to influence nutrition in Grenada, and we hope by doing so also influence what we grow and what we eat. We're able to address it. So we're starting with agriculture because we think it's sort of the lowest hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. There is the T. Marshall Community College, what I would call agricultural college at Maribo, that we think we can upgrade substantially, because currently there are less than 10 students there. And we really want to be in a position where we can give persons the opportunity actually to go and reskill, retool in agriculture, and then be able to use that in the communities, in the villages, to actually create businesses and to grow more food to sell and to eat. So that's just one opportunity, but we're also looking at furniture making and wider construction. We're also looking at, as we said, a marina school, and we're also looking at tourism and hospitality. But it will take some time because it requires us to plan, it requires us to find the sites, it requires us to agree on the curriculum. We then have to get the trainers, recruit them, do the training, and then obviously open for this. So we're hoping that we can start at least one of them by January of 2027.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you, Prime Minister. And that's where we conclude this segment. When we come back, we will be getting the DMs from the street with Norris.
My name is Liselle Walcott. I am a staff nurse at the General Hospital for the past 16 years. At the Infection Control Department, we do surveillance for communicable diseases or hospital-acquired infections. We do outbreak investigations. So any issues we have, we would investigate it, find out the cause, and we would do recommendations and interventions to all relevant departments. Thus far, with Mount Sinai, we are looking at ways of improving hand hygiene. Hand hygiene has been proven to be one of the most important practice you could do to break the chain of infection. Working along with Mount Sinai, I foresee that it will be a very good thing for us. They are looking into the products that we use, the practices that we do. Going forward, we'll be able to achieve a very high level of compliance and safety across the board for everyone.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for always being here with us. If you are just joining us, you missed our DMs, the first part of the program, but now we are moving to our DMs from the street with Norris.
Welcome back to another amazing edition of DMs with PM. I'm yours truly, Norris Francois, reminding you that DMs with PM was created so that you can have direct access to Grenada's leadership. Come with me as we get the DMs from the streets.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. I am Akela Roberts, Miss Carrickou and PT Martinique 2026. My platform is based on amplifying awareness, acceptance, and inclusion for autistic individuals from every stage of life. My question to you, Mr. Prime Minister, is there any discussions about implementing a school for special education in Carrickou?
Well, thank you very much for the very interesting question, and I'm happy that you, as Miss Carrickou and PT Martinique, that you are championing the cause of autism across all stages. The honest answer is currently no. There is no discussions or plans about actually having a school in Carrickou. What I'm aware of, and I can have the Ministry of Education verify that, is that the Ministry of Education has been engaged in a series of training of teachers across Grenada, Carrickou, and PT Martinique on dealing with children with special education needs, including autistic children. That is training that's ongoing, partly to first recognize it, and then to be able to provide the services in the context of the school. There are countries that we've been looking at the approaches that they've taken to addressing things like autism or children on different levels of the spectrum to see how best to ensure that we can support and encourage them. But I will admit that it is what I would say a fast evolving area, and we seem to be having more and more children on the spectrum or being diagnosed with autism. So it is something that we certainly will have to address as we go forward. But it is something that we will continue to work on. I know, for instance, that when we were in Cuba, we visited a school for special education that is actually named after Maurice Bishop. We got an opportunity to meet with the students, meet with the teachers, meet with the education administrators, and we believe the Ministry of Education should have been working with them to see how we can exchange best practices and how they can assist us in terms of some of their approaches to addressing some of this. So it is something that's ongoing, but the fact that we have a young, bright student from Carrickou and PT Martinique who's raising the issue, I think is good, because it means obviously there are opportunities for us to continue working to address the challenge faced by autistic children.
Yeah, I think that one was a great question. So on to our next question.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. My name is Brianna James, and I'm a Form 4 student of the Happil Secondary School. My question is today, what more is the government planning on doing to help elevate or develop young people who would like to learn a skill or two?
Well, thank you, Brianna from Happil, and thank you for coming on and asking the question. I really appreciate it. So there are a number of things that we're doing, and I talked a little bit about it. We recognize that we have to put significant resources into technical and vocational education, and as you said, into specifically learning a skill or skills, but also giving us the opportunity to change the skills if we want. So, as I said, we've currently put together a delivery team led by Ms. Val Gordon. Ms. Val Gordon was actually involved in education even during the period of the Grenada PRG time when they, I think, together with Dr. Dilkas Jules, who is now our Director General of the OECS, who at the time served as Chief Education Officer in Grenada, and they led a lot of the adult education programs and so on that Grenada benefited from. So we are using Ms. Gordon and Ms. Nyla James, who is the Permanent Secretary, specifically assigned to this project, so that we can have the beginning of a comprehensive development of a policy and in program, a curricula and schools to specifically address technical and vocational education. What we are hoping to achieve is that by the time a student gets to Form 1 and Form 2, they can make a determination as to whether they in fact pursue technical and vocational education essentially for the remainder of their schooling career and decide whether they will do so all the way up to PhD level, or whether they can choose to do so more from a practical skills learning point of view, or whether they can do both the academic and the technical and vocational. But this is quite a radical change, because to a large extent what we have now is almost a complete dominance by academic. We have bits and pieces here of technical or vocational. So for example, Boca or Happy Hill may have particular pieces of instrument or equipment that allow students to learn very limited trade. In addition to that, at some of the primary schools, we've already started introducing the students to technical and vocational work. And I'm saying technical and vocational here, but I also think it's important for us to emphasize the creative arts as well, because this is critical. Music, food, nutrition, textiles, all of those things are a part of a wider scope as well in terms of broadening what are the opportunities that are there, and digital education as well. So the plan really is to take it step by step, and we obviously want to make the education relevant for our purposes. That's why we said we need to get the agricultural, I would call it the university, up and going. That's why we said we have to establish the marine school, because that's one area where the education system does not address at all. We are saying furniture making initially, but essentially construction in the widest sense. We hope to be able to build that out. And in hospitality, because we recognize the current need, not just for low-level skills in the hospitality sector, but for mid-tier management, supervisory, and specific skills such as culinary arts and so on. So that is the plans. It is ambitious. It will take a lot of resources. And crucially, it will need a lot of buy-in from teachers, from students, and from parents, because we have to deal with the culture that has, I think, unfortunately encouraged excessive focus on what I call certificates and credentializing rather than practical, technical skills that has led our country. And I'm not blaming anyone, because I think we've all presided over this over the last 50 years, that has led our country to value, in my view wrongly, a lot of certificates. But then when a child is 18 years old, they may have a lot of certificates, but when you exit, what are the jobs that are available and what are the better paying jobs, right? And if your certificates don't relate to those things and doesn't give you the skill, then you can't have it. So I'm hoping that 24 months from now, we can point to the students in Happy Hill Secondary School. This is a track if you're interested in. Skill sets related to agriculture, skill sets relating to construction, skill sets relating to the marine industry, skill sets relating to tourism, hospitality, the creative arts, the creative economy. So that is what we're hoping to be able to build out over time, but it is not something that will happen immediately, as much as I want it to happen immediately, mainly because of human resource constraints. If you ask how many technical and vocational teachers we have in the system now, you'd find that it's a small handful, and it would not be sufficient to have wide-scale implementation of this without us recruiting and building up the teacher base. So I've given a long response, but I think the student deserve the long response, and hopefully other students who are interested in this can also see the vision and where we're hoping to go.
Great. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Brianna, for your question. Back to Norris for another question.
Well, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to DMs on the Streets. Right? What's your name?
My name is Carlos Gittins.
All right.
I'm associated with Caribbean Coding Academy.
All right.
And I also am a teacher in T.A. Marshall Community College.
All right. So ask your Prime Minister a question.
Well, the question for my Prime Minister is, there has been a lot of positive things happening with the students in the secondary schools doing the coding program. And we have gotten requests from some of the schools to expand it to more than just the 7 schools that we're in right now. And I think it would be really nice if it could expand beyond those schools and come out of a pilot program so that more people in Grenada, especially the ones in the country, could benefit. So I'm just wondering if he has any plans to do that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm a little surprised that we haven't gone beyond the 7 schools in pilot, so it's something I would raise with the Ministry of Education. The goal, I think, ultimately is to make digital skills, including things like coding, widely accessible throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. So we started this, I think, very early on the administration getting into office. It's now 3.5 years. So really and truly, I would have expected a scaling up and a galvanizing of it. So it is something I would raise with the Minister of Education so that we can get a report on where we are and why we have not scaled fast enough. I think we're seeing the dramatic changes that technology can bring from AI in particular, and we definitely need, in fact, people even say AI may make coding itself obsolete. So we need to make sure that our students are not getting left behind and that we can match the pace of change. So it is certainly something I will take up with the Ministry of Education.
All right. Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you for your question. We go back to Norris.
Hi, my name is Kali Shogis, and I think Project Polaris is a wonderful initiative. Many of the times you see that your family members, friends, loved ones, or in general, people are traveling to get medical care assistance. And many of the times, well, the main reason is that in Grenada, we don't have certain services for the people. So that's why they have to travel abroad to get that medical care that they need. I think Project Polaris would be beneficial as it would help people on the island access the care that they need, 1. And 2, it would benefit the country on a broader spectrum in a sense that people would travel here to access care. So I think that's called medical tourism.
Yeah.
So basically, I think it is a good initiative. And I like the fact that Grenada would be able to have a big hospital and we'll be able to access care.
Thank you, Ms. Ogis, for your comments, and I think you have summarized in a very neat way 2 of the main reasons for having the Project Polaris or the new hospital. And as you see from one of the DMs, we have a Grenadian who's currently in Colombia seeking medical treatment, and as she's pointing out, they're running out of funds, and that's part of what, because it's not just the cost of the treatment, it's the hotels, the airplane, etc., that you have to be able to come up with. So that's in a nutshell. It's not just also encouraging medical tourism, but the fact is, if the funds stay in Grenada, because all of this money is being spent outside of Grenada for medical care, so in and of itself it weakens our own economic strength, because we have to essentially take that money, buy foreign exchange, and spend it in another country. So right there, it demonstrates the benefit of this, and so I really do hope that there is widespread and national support for the project. And Ms. Ogis is a young lady, and I think she's obviously part of the future generation that recognizes the importance of having state-of-the-art healthcare.
Yes, and I think she understands why too.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you, Prime Minister. We go back to Norris.
Prime Minister, my name is Reginald Ferguson. I'm from Happy Hill Secondary School, and I'm an agriculture student. I like farming, and for our agriculture, we're getting a lot of complaints about the sun. I'm wondering if we could get the shade house. Additionally, I would like to learn how to plant underneath the shade environment.
All right, well, that's, and you see, I think all of the questions are dovetailing into the very topics that we are talking about. And so I will certainly ask the Ministry of Education and or the Ministry of Education, and if I have to get involved myself, to see how we can have a shade house donated to the agricultural students at Happy Hill Secondary School. So I think from DMs with PM, we could certainly give that commitment. And certainly in terms of assistance with how you plant on the shade house, it is something that I think we can get technical support with to make sure that the students and your teacher or lecturer can also assist with that. So I'm happy to hear that. That is what we want. That is what we want to see agriculture, science in particular, being used to ensure that from a very early age our students are into food production and the food security that we need. So I'm very happy to see agricultural students in secondary school committing to food security and committing by extension to national development. So we have to help, and so we'll certainly try and see how we can get the shade house to the students at Appeal.
Okay. I think what stood out for me was the fact that it's a male. You know, normally our males are usually not the ones who speak.
Yes, well, that's part of what we have to also address. So I'm happy to see that happening. So I certainly want to then shout out the student, staff, and principal of the Appeal Secondary School. We got 2 questions from the students from Appeal, and we're happy to see that they're engaged and taking part in DMs from the street.
Yes, yes, we are. Thank you, Prime Minister. We go over now. We go back to Norris for questions.
Good afternoon, Honorable Prime Minister. My name is Madison McIntosh, and my question is, are there any plans to make Grenada a republic? And if so, why? I think that Grenada should be a republic country to give us a greater sense of independence.
Thank you, Madison, for the question. I support your comments that I believe that government itself, maybe not necessarily for the same reasons, but I think part of ensuring that in small countries we use our resources wisely, we have to make sure the government itself is not expensive. And the system of government that we've inherited requires us to have a governor general, requires us to have a prime minister. The governor general is appointed. You have a prime minister, you then have cabinet ministers, you have parliamentarians, you have members of the Senate, you have a speaker of the House, a president of the Senate. All of this has to be paid for. And sometimes we don't recognize that that's a separate and distinct cost just associated with the government itself. And we're not talking about civil servants or public servants as yet. And so in small countries, I think it's important to make sure that we have governments that are lean, effective, and responsive. So it's not something we campaign on. And the reason for that is because we've had two referenda trying to address constitutional change. And unfortunately, it has always resulted in no votes. Maybe partly because there was just too much stuff going on and then the political atmosphere and environment was not supportive of it. So hopefully, with persons like her, particularly young persons advocating for those issues, we can have the debate, we can have the discussions, and then begin the constitutional change that makes our system of government more reflective of our needs, more flexible, more efficient, less bureaucratic, less costly. I don't know why we need a head of state and a head of government. Even very wealthy countries like the United States doesn't have a head of state and a head of government. The head of government is the head of state, right? And again, right there, you eliminate costs, you eliminate some of the bureaucracy. But that is part of understanding the history of our colonial past, understanding the institutions we've inherited. And it shows how deeply entrenched the colonial past is, because even now with the power to change it, you recognize it is very difficult to change, simply because of that culture and that practice that has taken place over the centuries, really, and has left us with these legacy government institutions. So hopefully, we can have honest conversations about what type of governance systems that is best suited for particular needs or particular environment as we evolved throughout our continued independence phase.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you to Madison for your question. We are going to take a break now. When we come back, we will be opening up the lines for you to call in and ask the Prime Minister your questions. We'll be back shortly.
It's like the water pure and clean. It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
Welcome back. We are now on the home stretch. It is that time when we invite you to call, ask the Prime Minister your questions. That number 423-3104. You have an opportunity to call, ask your questions, and we do ask that you keep them as short and precise as possible, which gives the Prime Minister to be able to accommodate more and also to be able to give an answer to that concern that you may have. So, Prime Minister, as we wait on the calls, We continue. I think it's important that we continue our conversation on Project Polaris. We know that we can talk this entire program, we can speak about it. But, and look at that, a call is coming in. As soon as we're about to start it. All right, let's take in the call. Caller, good evening. Thank you so much for participating.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
I have a couple of questions. Number one is, what is the time frame that's projected for the completion of the hospital? That's number one. Number two, would that be a 24-hour work in progress? Because you know, as the wheel turns very slowly with construction is in Grenada, do you think you'll be having a 24-hour work to get the work done on time? That's my second question. And my last question is, I spoke to the Minister of Health approximately 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, asking for a mirror at the end of Mount Hartnett Road going onto the Lansepine Road. Because coming off of the Lansepine Road, on the left you can see, but on the right you have a difficulty seeing the vehicles coming up. And that's why the mirror is requested. This was asked for by, from Andy Williams about 2 years ago. He told me there wasn't any. I spoke to the Honorable Minister of Health when he was on 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he said to me, yes, you guys got mirror in, and he will make sure one is being placed there. Nothing hasn't happened as yet. I don't know how long this will take, but we need something before accident occur right there. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I will take the last question first. The Ministry of Infrastructure is responsible for the erection of the mirrors. I will have to confirm whether there's any in stock, and if there is, we will certainly work with the road officers for the Grandlands area to see that it is erected. I think I know the area that the caller is speaking of, and like most of the areas where you have minor roads intersecting with larger roads, you sometimes have blind spots. So it is something that I think could be done quite easily once we have confirmation that they have in stock. I can't give you a timeline because I don't know whether the Ministry of Infrastructure has any in stock. If they do, then certainly it is something we can expect, a matter of a week or two to be erected. In terms of whether the work will be conducted 24 hours, I can't answer that. I mean, it really will depend on the contractor and ultimately the contracting terms that we enter into with the contractor. The problem with working 24 hours is that it raises the cost significantly because you are likely going to have to do shift work. Night work in particular becomes a lot more expensive because then you have to use energy to light the field, and safety and security also is risky at night. But I can't answer whether that will or will not be a feature of the approach the contractor takes when the contract is awarded to whoever the contractor actually ultimately is. We anticipate, I would say, that what I would call raw construction to take about 24 months. And then we'd probably need another 6 to 8, maybe 10 months to actually do the finishing to outfit the hospital with equipment, etc., etc. So all things being equal, I'd expect that in 36 months we should be in a position where there's an actual ribbon cutting ceremony and commissioning of the hospital.
Okay. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, caller, for your question. We have another call online. Good evening, caller.
Good evening to you, my dear PM.
Good evening.
And your host.
Good evening.
PM, Sister T.A., for the longest while I've been trying to get in touch with you, but to no avail. I would very, very like to make an appointment to see you, my dear PA.
All right. Certainly we will do so.
Okay, please do that for me. Love you.
All
Have
right.
a good evening.
Thank you, and same to you.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the next caller. I do believe we have another call online. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller. Okay, we seem to have lost that caller. Prime Minister, I think as we were just about breaking there, about to start on Project Polaris. And I think healthcare, it is important. We are speaking about our youth, but, and I think that call, the concern of the parent of the child in Colombia, that is something that we hear so much about. Somebody has a problem, most of the times they cannot foot the medical bill, and then we would see the motorcade going around Grenada. What can government do to be able to assist with that? I know Project Polaris will be able to capture some of that in there, but what can government do in the immediate to assist?
Right. Well, I would answer both immediate and short term, and I think it's important for us to recognize that if we get to the point of having the government to assist, we've probably lost the battle already. So there are a couple of things we need to be very honest about in Grenada. Most of the health challenges we have, including amongst children, are purely related to what we consume and our lifestyle. And it's two very basic stuff. We consume a lot of sugar, a lot of salt, a lot of starch. And I'm not talking here, as George Brizan used to say, complex carbohydrates. I'm not talking about yam and sweet potato and cassava and the sheen and so on. We are consuming what is called dense, highly processed, manufactured food that is imported into Grenada. So if you go to a supermarket and you look at the cereal line, you have entire lines that are made up of cereal that is essentially highly processed, dried corn starch with a lot of sugar and a lot of salt that is very expensive, $25 and $30 a box of cereal, right? And we forego a lot of the natural, easily, readily available grown foods in Grenada, from breakfast to lunch to dinner. So we've had a chronic situation where we have a lot of obesity, a lot of heart problems, hypertension, lots of cancers, and even amongst our young people now, we are ending up in a situation where at very young age, people in their 20s and 30s need to go on dialysis. Right? By the time you get there, if you're on dialysis, I mean, the prospects of survival, because it's very expensive, and essentially means you would have gotten very sick, very ill already. And then you add to that issues such as excessive consumption of alcohols, particularly amongst men. So we can reverse a lot of this ourselves. And what the government has to do, in conjunction with the Food and Nutrition Council, in conjunction with leadership across the society, is for us to promote a healthier lifestyle. One that has things like alcohol use in moderation, ones that protects our children from alcohol use, one that ensures that we change our diet and that we focus on vegetables, we focus on salads, we focus on using the food that is grown here. And we're not even talking about the pesticides and all those kinds of things. Now, I know it's a difficult issue to address because the television in particular gives us American culture. We see American food highly processed, highly fried, with terrible oils. It looks very nice because the camera and they make it look nice and golden and juicy and succulent, but it is bad for us. That's the honest truth. And no amount of hospitals, no amount of money is going to be able to change those facts, because in the United States, they're struggling with the same issue. You would see that healthcare is a big issue. So that's the first part. We have the power to reverse a lot of this by our simple food intake, liquid intake, and exercise. And we're lighting all of the pastures. We're putting up playpens and play parks all around. We need to move beyond track and field only at Inter-col time. We need to walk more. We are driving more. We are dropping our children literally right up to the steps of the school instead of just having them walk, right? Sometimes we write all kinds of excuses for them not to do physical activity. So we have to turn that around. That's step one. Step two, and I think this is critical, that's why we need a national health insurance. Now, we insure everything. We insure our cars, we insure our homes, we insure our properties. We have all kinds of insurance that are available, but we don't insure our health. And your health is more important than your car. Your health is more important than your home, because if you're sick, you can't use the car, right? If you're in a hospital and your house is just sitting there, of no use to you. So we have to make sure that from an education point of view, the public understands that if we want top-class healthcare, if we want the services that other countries are offering, it has to be financed. And it cannot be paid for by simply taxing the population, right? There are instruments, there are tools, and the insurance sector is one critical sector that can help us with this. This is why we need a national health insurance, because if you recognize that there's a risk that your car may meet in an accident, and so you pay insurance so that if that happens, you have the money to repair it, because on your own, you will never be able to save to be able to repair it. Very people can do that. It's the same thing with our health, particularly for what I call serious ailments. You know, if it's a cut or, cleaning your teeth or a routine eye check, you can pay for that $75, $150. But most people, including people who are relatively well off in Grenada, are not able to finance major medical expenditure because you simply cannot save enough for this. That is where pulling all of our resources come into being, so that we have a financing system that can allow us to to pull resources through the health premiums so that when one of us have a major medical, it can be financed. But it's also important for us to understand that the health insurance also works on how healthy we are. So the healthier we are, the less likely we need a major medical, right? And therefore, it ensures the sustainability of the national health insurance program as well. Many citizens already have private health insurance, but as it stands now, within the public health sector, you can't even use it. If you went by a private doctor, you can use your surgical card, you can get discounts for your dental care, etc., etc. If you go to a general hospital, no one is asking you for your surgical card, right? So we cannot continue this system in the current health system and expect to get the types of services. We have to pay for the nurses. We have to be able to retain them. We have to pay them better. We have to pay the doctors. We have to pay them better. We have to pay all the allied health professionals. We must increase their salaries. But we can't increase their salaries without having the financing, and that means the health insurance. Critically, it means persons who are able to paying for the services, right? And I think this is important for us to appreciate. I'm not saying everybody should pay, because we know there are people who may not be able to pay. That is why we need the health insurance, so that we have a mechanism to finance those who can't pay. But for those who can pay, then we need to pay for them. There are many Grenadians who travel overseas for routine medical checkups and so on because they don't have the confidence yet. But I'm saying in those circumstances, therefore, if they do come to the hospital or they do go to the public facilities here, we should be able to get the revenue from them, especially if they have insurance and they're prepared to pay for it. So I've given a long-winded response, but I think it's critical for us to appreciate that to a large extent, the human body has the capacity to repair itself and to not get sick. But it really depends on what we put into it and whether we stay active or not.
All right, great. Thank you, Prime Minister. I do believe we have a call online. Good evening, caller. Thank you for calling.
Good evening. Most welcome. Good evening, Prime Minister.
Good evening, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Right. Yes, all is well.
All right. So I have a question for you. With the massive success of Spice Mass last year and the heightened global anticipation, we poised to receive a record influx of visitors based on the trajectory of the markers like bookings and so forth. Given our existing constraints in infrastructure like accommodations and transport and supply chains, say supply chains is that I'm saying that to say generally when there's peak season, the groceries empty out really quickly. So with what's expected, I think it's going to be an astronomical rate. So I'm just trying to figure out if we have a concrete measure that we want to deploy to put in place to manage the increasing demand. Well, particularly in like traffic congestion, food availability, visitor safety, and protection against things like maybe accommodation scams, so that we could, ensure that both locals and visitors could experience a safe and seamless world-class carnival.
All right, well, thank you for the question. I think it emphasizes that carnival is not an event or a show, but it's a wider socio-economic activity. And as we grow and as our carnival grow, it means the country's capacity to address and deal with this also has to be factored in. I think we've learned quite a lot of lessons. We have deliberately so pursued hosting a lot of large international events because I think it also tests the capacity of the country to successfully host and manage events from a security point of view, from a safety, from a health. But I want to emphasize something because every time people ask the government questions, the government is not the economy. The government is part of the economy and the private sector is critical to the economy. And so we want to be able to encourage the private sector. I mean, it's the job of the private sector to anticipate demand and to be able to match that supply. So certainly I expect that if you know that there's going to be an influx of visitors, if you know more and more people are coming to the island, that those of us who are in the private sector will certainly then take the appropriate measures to make that demand. I always remember the Prime Minister of the Bahamas giving me this joke that when they held the Afrexim Bank event, the merchants in Nassau said to him, well, you didn't say to us that the Africans who were visiting were wealthy and that they would buy out Nassau. And we laughed, because they said, well, they ran out of stocks after the first 2 days. All right, and he was telling me this by saying, therefore I'm suggesting to you that when Grenada is hosting, that you also ensure that the private sector understands what is coming. So I'm happy that he's flagged this. I mean, there's only so much services the government can provide. We can provide the safety and the security aspects. We can certainly manage traffic and so on. Those are things. We can certainly ensure that as much as possible, entry to and from the airport is as seamless as possible. But the rental business is not the government's own. You know, the accommodation is not the government own. And what I think has to happen, because I think we sense since the massive success last year of Carnival, that there's going to be renewed interest and growing interest in Grenada's Carnival. And I want to encourage, it's not too late, the private sector, therefore, to make sure that they can stock up and they can anticipate and meet the demand and ensure that both the public sector and the private sector can work seamlessly to match that. So if you ask me, there are wonderful opportunities for entrepreneurs to find solutions to those kinds of things, to get into the food business, or it doesn't have to be permanent, temporary food, accommodation, transportation. It's an opportunity to have more persons engage in things like ride share, right? To put your vehicle in a ride share app so that if persons need to carpool and so on, then you can make money via taxi, etc. So I see it as an opportunity for more entrepreneurs to be solutions oriented and to get into finding accommodations, finding rental, finding food, finding entertainment parties, explaining about the culture of Grenada, etc., and finding ways to make money out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was thinking the same thing because you hear people saying that they have tickets but no accommodation. When we did World Cup years ago, we had this homestay program where people would have opened up their homes, the people in the vetting process. So many opportunities.
There are many opportunities, and I think that's what we have to see it as, and it's also an opportunity for growth. And sometimes an economy overheats where the supply can't match the demand. But I think we know Carnival is an annual event, so we should be able to plan and match it. There are things, for example, we have the UK SIF and the G Cruise project, where obviously large quantities of pipe are being laid to address our water concerns and so on. We will obviously be taking steps to mitigate as much as we can the conditions of the road and so on in time for Carnival. In fact, we have to do it in time for Carifta as well, which is coming. So all in all, let's hope that both the public and the private sector can work together to make sure the event is a spectacular success.
Yes, I think we are looking forward to that. Outside of just playing jab, I think that there are many economic benefits and opportunities that Carnival will be bringing to us. And we must applaud our artists for being excellent ambassadors throughout the region from last year to now. So, Prime Minister, we're kind of out of time. And,
already?
Yes.
An hour flies.
Time flies when we're having fun. Just some parting words with us as we prepare for tomorrow's town hall meeting on Project Polaris.
Yes, well, we're doing the town hall meeting, but we also intend to have tomorrow a briefing of the senior managers board, that is senior managers within the public service, so that they are aware of the entirety of the project, because thus far, naturally, it's been led by the Ministry of Finance, because without resources, there is no project, and the Ministry of Health, because clearly it's a hospital, and to a lesser extent now the Ministry of Infrastructure, because of the fact that we're getting to start what I call pre-construction type works. I want to emphasize to the public, when we say this is your project, it is your project. We've begun site clearing and some initial preparatory works. We expect a large sort of fencing billboard will go up with a basic concept architectural design of what the hospital would look like. Over time, members of the public will be allowed to go onto the site and engage in guided tours. So you have a lookout of the entire acreage, so you kind of see what the Hopevale Medical City would look like, because remember, we have 84 acres of land. The hospital itself may not need more than 15 to 16 acres of land, and the rest of it obviously is for economic business development. So we also want to encourage Grenadians to think about what businesses they may have an opportunity to invest in within that ecosystem. And I think that is critical to point out. The hospital is just phase one, the anchor of what should become a major economic innovation, digital, biomed type ecosystem that I think can then be used as an example to catalyze other economic growth areas within Grenada. So there will be an opportunity for Grenadians to get guided tours of the site, commencing probably as early as next week Friday.
Okay.
I think from around 11 a.m. That will be happening. So there's a briefing tomorrow for the senior managers. There will also be a briefing to the entire Parliament, both the members of the lower and upper house on the 24th of March after Parliament sits, because we have a sitting of the lower house. We will then have the project team come in and brief all parliamentarians. And there's a reason for doing this. This is a national project. This transcends politics or political divide. It is something that we need. It is something that, whether it's this administration or administration after it, we'll have to continue it, we'll have to manage and develop for the benefit of Grenada, Carrickwood, and PT Martinique. So we want to ensure that the usual parties and approach sometimes to government projects does not happen here, so that we can brief parliamentarians, they can ask questions even ahead of the sword turning ceremony, and they have an opportunity to critique, they have an opportunity to give their own input. It's important to emphasize that it's a dynamic situation. There are lots of moving parts, but it's important for us. We can't simply wait until we have every box ticked before we start proceeding. And it's also a means of building confidence as well in the project, because there are lots of naysayers who have said this is never going to happen. It's been something that's been talked about for a century plus. It never will happen. But I think we are beginning to again show that we have the passion, the vision, the ability and the willingness to take on difficult tasks for the benefit of the citizens of Grenada. So I want to conclude by thanking all those who've been working to make this a success, in particular the Minister of Health, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Health, the staff at the Ministry of Health, our collaborators, Mount Sinai, the various consultants who've already been hired and coming on board, Perkins and Wills, who are our architects. Thus far, I think there's a Beck group who will be project managers, and certainly, last but not least, the project delivery team headed by Ms. Saint Bernard and Mr. Damian Dolan, two Grenadians who are demonstrating the competence and capacity of Grenadians in being able to take on large, complex projects and being able to start the delivery process. Okay. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you again for another informative and interactive program. We do appreciate the questions. The young ones came in as usual. Very, very powerful, excellent ideas, all wanting to know things, those curious minds. We do appreciate, and we want so much more of it, because I think we see that our future is bright.
Absolutely.
We have great prospects. I think agriculture today, I want to personally call out that young man from Happy Hill Secondary School. Many more young men come out. It's important. Don't think that the traditional professions, that they are not important. They are, and you can add science to it. All that you do in all the sciences, you can apply it to agriculture, to everything that you do. So don't think that you're limited. And we want to encourage you, use the technology in it, make it easier, and let us be able to eat what we produce here at home, so that we can become self-sufficient. Prime Minister, again, thank you for another wonderful program. To all our viewers and our listeners, Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, Vibes FM, GIS, Facebook, and our YouTube viewers. Again, thank you to those who sent in their DMs, those who we met on the street, and those who called. Thank you. It's always a pleasure, and we wanted to continue to do so, as you do have that direct link to the leadership of Grenada, where you have an opportunity to ask your question, and they are answered immediately. I am your host, Arcelyn Crosby, to the production team. Thank you again for always making this special and successful. We will be back here again with you next Tuesday, when we do this all over again, DMs with PM.